Welcome back to another episode of the Top Attorneys of North America podcast. Today's guest is someone who sits at the intersection of law, technology, education, and business innovation. Eric L. Guthrie is a blockchain attorney, Amazon #1 best-selling author, adjunct professor at law at Purdue Global Law School, director of training for the Government Blockchain Association, and chairperson of the Board of Trustees at the Barber Scotia College. He's the author of several influential books, including Blockchain or Die, Blockchain or Die Harder, and Diversify and Die or Die, and has trained professionals around the world on blockchain technology, cryptocurrency regulation, digital assets, NFTs, Web3, and emerging technologies. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sal, and thank you for having me.
It's my honor. Thank you very much for being here. I always like to start my interviews with the attorneys, right at the beginning. Number one, what inspired you to become an attorney? Please outline your journey for our listeners.
So it's a really interesting story. I was a student at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was pre-med. My family was heavily medical. My father was a dentist. My mother was a nurse, supervisor, and I was following in those footsteps to go to med school. And I spent about 2.5 years doing biology and pre-med work. But then along came a lot of community activism. I got involved with, fighting for the underprivileged, fighting against the use of drugs in our community. And it got noticed by some of the political campaigns back in that time frame. It was a 1988 campaign. So I was recruited to do a lot of campaign work for back then the Paul Simon campaign. And by the way, I became the president of the College Democrats of Georgia. And then that campaign folded. And then the Jackson campaign picked me up, Jesse Jackson's campaign. And that campaign went to Super Tuesday. And then that campaign folded. And then the Dukakis campaign picked me up. And throughout this whole process, like, well, Eric, what do you do? What do you want to do? Well, I'm going to go to med school, so on and so forth. I said, what? You should be a lawyer, And I mean, that was the response I heard every single time. So combine that with the fact that at the time, the medical profession was changing. Back then, doctors basically managed their own schedule, they managed their own billing, but then insurance put into place, managed practice. So basically, the insurance companies were managing the doctors, and that was just hugely distasteful to many folks in the medical industry back then, as well as, all the horror stories of those, 36, 48-hour residency and internship at the hospitals. And I was like, you know what, maybe I will go to law school instead. But so I graduated with my med degree. I mean, I took the MCATs and everything. I was in the med school, and then I had to take a year off to take the LSATs to go to law school. So I ended up going to Columbia Law, and that's kind of the story, that brought me there. Fun fact, though, a lot of the schools in that time frame, they were looking for science majors to bring a different perspective to the law. So I was perfectly positioned with my degree in biology and pre-med to fit some of the unique educations they were looking for at that time.
Gotcha. You didn't start as a blockchain attorney.
No, no, no. So my first job out of law school was the district attorney. I was a DA in New York, in Brooklyn, New York. And then from there, I went to moved to Connecticut, and I became an assistant commissioner of counsel, working on employment, labor discrimination cases for the government. After that, I pivoted to private sector, and I was doing a lot of HR legal work, like labor and employment work again. And then I moved up into the executive ranks of many companies. But at some point in time, I said, I need to figure out how I can make my own way, do my own thing. And I started my company, Better Me, Better We, and that
Hmm.
started my consulting and my public speaking. But also, I learned that in order to be more effective, to be more desirable, you have to write a book, not just a book, a good book. So I wrote my first book, Diversify or Die, in 2016. It did pretty well. I mean, it was the first time getting into the world of publications and being an author. But in all my book signings I was doing, I was just getting into Bitcoin, and I was asking people, "How many of you heard of Bitcoin?" And like no one was raising their hand. So I said, "You know what? I put aside my sequel to Diversify or Die, and I wrote Blockchain or Die in 2019, and that really took off. That really, put me in a lot of great rooms, a lot of great clients. When I come off a stage, I have a client or two just waiting to sign documentation with me, sign a retainer. So it's been very, very helpful with building my practice.
Yeah. I mean, most attorneys don't end up becoming blockchain experts. I mean, I know, blockchain was invented when 2008, 2009 in that area. Um, you know, I when back then, this was an area mainly reserved, for big law firms like Kirkland and Ellis, Skadden. Now I'm seeing smaller boutique firms entering the space. Was it the fact that you invested in crypto? Is that what first drew you into this space?
Well, so fun fact, blockchain technology existed before Bitcoin. What Satoshi Nakamoto did was he saw that as a technology he could use to verify transactions and make them more
Okay.
secure. So he took the existing, blockchain technology protocols and put them into Bitcoin. For me, what happened was another quick clever story about how I got into it. I was in an Uber talking with this the driver. I always chatted up with the drivers, and he was telling me that he had invested in Bitcoin to buy gaming coins and stuff like that, to buy life and weapons and so on and so forth. And then he bought it for a few cents, and it went to like $20. So he says, "I'm selling. I'm cashing out." So he did.
Yeah.
And then at a time that he was giving me a ride, it was worth $50. And he was like, "Oh man, I was so upset that I sold at 20. I could have held on and sold it for 50." So fast forward a year, this is like the 2015, 16 timeframe. I'm at a retirement luncheon with some friends of mine. One of the attorneys was retiring, and one of the younger interns asked if we knew about Bitcoin. I said, I heard about Bitcoin about a year or so ago with this Uber driver. He goes, yeah, it's at $3,000 a coin now. I was like, say
Wow.
what? So it was, oh yeah, it's big and there's other cryptos kind of sprouting out because of this. So that night I went back to my house. I found everything I could on Bitcoin, and then I said, you know what? Let me start by reading the Bitcoin white paper. And that's what I tell everybody to do. Other than reading my book, I told them to read the Bitcoin white paper and then to read the Ethereum white paper. Those are the two fundamental documents that will get you the knowledge you need without opinions or any type of stuff happening with the author, what they're saying. Those are the fundamental documents that created what we have here today. And I said after that, and read it a number of times, then go out and read other stuff. But start with that, start with my book, because my book has that information there, very heavy in the book. And then, go out and do your thing. So I decided A, to invest, but B, I decided to actually make it part of my professional portfolio. I knew this was going to be a paradigm shifting technology in law and finance and education and in investing and everything. And I'm glad I did because, the investing side has ups and downs, but the professional side is always going to move forward. So, when the market is down, I have no concerns because I'm always bringing in new clients, building new coins, building new blockchain enterprise solutions, doing trainings. I'm doing a number of legal trainings in the next couple of months, and all that is revenue independent of the investment in cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, I love that story with the cab driver. What was that other story? The guy that bought a pizza pie with, I forget how many Bitcoin. Was it like 100 Bitcoin or something?
About 20,000.
Oh my God.
But back then, Bitcoin was worth 0.003 cents. And the way
Yes.
they indexed the price was the amount of electricity it cost to mine a Bitcoin. So back then it was 0.003 cents. So 20,000 Bitcoin, when it's like, well below a penny, is not that much. Now, If they held on to that Bitcoin, they're multimillionaires. But that was the first Bitcoin transaction.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that on the internet. You know, somebody asked, "Where is that guy that bought the pizza?" And he actually commented. He goes, "I'm here, but I'm dead inside." Eric, let's be honest. I mean, most people can barely explain how their Wi-Fi works. Yet they're investing in crypto. They're buying NFTs. They're talking about Web3 at cocktail parties, and we will be covering these topics today. So please, can you explain blockchain, NFTs, Web3 in simple terms that even, my uncle who still prints his emails can understand them?
So this is how I explain cryptos and blockchains. I'm going to put aside NFTs for a second.
Okay.
So if you understand how a house is bought and sold, how a dollar works, how a checkbook works, how a padlock works, and how a cashier works, I could explain to you how blockchains work. So when you buy a house, you have to get what's called title insurance, which makes sure that clean title is being passed from the seller to the buyer. You get a title insurance company to do a title insurance search. And they go back to when the house was built and they look at all the transactions involving the house and look to see if there's any mechanics liens or any estate liens or any type of liens on the property, tax liens that would hinder passing a good title from the seller to the buyer, right? So that track record, that research, that use of the title insurance company to make sure good value is being passed is the first part of this process. Now, take out the house, put in the dollar, right? There's infinitely more dollars in houses. So now the transaction rate has exponentially expanded, right? So now you need to have a process that tracks that whether or not a good dollar is being passed in every transaction, okay? So those transactions need to go somewhere, and along comes your checkbook. So not just your checkbook ledger. For those of you who still know how checkbook works and what a ledger is where you put all your transactions before online banking and using apps and Zelle and et cetera, et cetera. You put, the date, the amount of the check, the who you're sending it to, and your new balance, and that's how you balance your checkbook, right? But now that checkbook is not your checkbook; it's a global checkbook that anyone
Mm,
can see, anyone can use. All transactions are on that checkbook and you can download them. For example, anyone can download the Bitcoin protocol. It's open, it's public, it's free to use, free to download. It's very sizable now. So before you can download it on your computer, now not so much because there's been millions of transactions using Bitcoin. But so that checkbook now is where all the transactions takes place. Well, this checkbook ledger needs security. And then the security is the padlock, but the padlock has two holes, a hole to open and a hole to close, right? So what does that mean? Imagine your email, right? And you have a password and you have a username. Your username is public. You want to do business, so you give out your email, hoping people are going to email you. That's the public key for the padlock, right? Now, the private key is like your password to your email. You don't give that out because that's the keys to the kingdom. So the private key is what decrypts the data. The public key encrypts the data. The private key decrypts the data, which means that even if someone hacked you and they got encrypted data, they didn't have the private key to decrypt the data. So that's one level of protection that we'll go to, and it's very, very simple explanation. So all is put together, there has to be a way to do transactions, and that's where the cashier comes in. So when you go to a store and you throw the chicken, the meat, the eggs, the cheese in your cart, you go to the cashier. None of that work that you did to put food in your cart is gonna be worth anything if you can't leave the store with it. So the cashier is the final point of transaction between the customer and the store. So they figure out the price. You give them your payment method. They give you the receipt. Bob's your uncle. They take the receipts back. They put them in the ledger, in their ledger, and the transaction is completed, right? So this whole story tells you that there are many moving parts, but they're very, very simple when it comes to process and understanding, right? Making sure you can track value accurately, making sure you can put value accurately somewhere, making sure that anyone can access it, making sure that it's protected. And the miner, by the way, I forgot to mention, the miner is the cashier in the blockchain crypto transactions because the miners are the one that do the transactions, they process transactions. Without miners, we wouldn't have successful cryptocurrencies or blockchain technology. So, the house, the dollar, the checkbook, the padlock, and the cashier describe how blockchains work.
Yes, sir. So it's an unchangeable record book shared across a global network of computers.
Yes, so that's the core of blockchain technology. Now there's a few nuances that you can get into depending on the crypto, but yes, that's the core. And the network of computers are they're all public. They're called nodes. So this computer I'm on and that you're on, it will be called a node when you're doing a crypto transaction.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Let me ask you a question. And this is a question that I wonder about the most. Do you know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, or do you have
No.
a theory?
I do not. He, she,
Okay.
they created Bitcoin. There's a lot of theories out there. There's lawsuits out there. There's a lot of, like legal noise happening with it. There's speculation that it's a government that knew that if they knew it was a government, no one would get involved with it. A consortium like the Illuminati. I mean, there's all kinds of theories out there. I don't pay that any mind because if I did, that would take away from the value that Bitcoin has brought to the global marketplace. Bitcoin is worth $1 trillion. There's under 20 assets globally that are worth, like a global asset that's worth $1 trillion. And when you get to that $1 trillion mark, there is not one asset that has actually dropped off that list. So it's here to stay. I mean, 2008 is 2026. It's almost 20 years. So, when folks saying it was going to be a fad in 2000, 8, 9, and 10, guess what? You know, the fad time frame is long over. It is now institutionalized in our society. There's Bitcoin ETFs that, companies are creating like Grayscale. The SEC has approved Bitcoin ETFs. It's being used by governments. It's being used by corporations. So, I mean, it's here to stay.
Okay. Pardon my skepticism, um, but not knowing who Nakamoto is, isn't that a major risk for crypto, for Bitcoin?
So I'll tell you a story. I was at an event. This is about 6, 7 years ago, before the pandemic, and I was talking with a colleague of mine, and we were talking about Bitcoin because I would never invest in Bitcoin and so on and so forth. I said, okay, all right, because he didn't know who that person was. I said, "Who's the chair of the Federal Reserve right now?" And he didn't know the name of the chair. I said, "But you use a dollar, even though you don't know who the chair of the Federal Reserve is. Who's the Secretary of the Treasury right now?" He didn't know. I said, "But you use the dollar, even though you don't know the Secretary of the Treasury." I said, "What stock do you own?" He named, a few stocks. I said, "Name me the CEO of that stock," and he couldn't do it. So I said, "So you're creating a unequal assessment on why you wouldn't do Bitcoin, but every day you're using dollars and you're investing in stocks, and you don't know who owns it, operates it, or the names of the CEO of the companies you invest in. Does that make sense to you?" And he had no retort, right? Because it was true. The bottom line is who Satoshi Nakamoto is not important. If it was important, it would not be $1 trillion asset, right? What's important is the value it brings to global communities, the value it brings to the underbanked or unbanked or around the world, the value it brings to companies that otherwise would not be able to do fundraising or do IPOs. Cryptos give them another option to try and raise capital. And quite frankly, the most important part of this story is the Bitcoin community that built it up from the ground so after Satoshi Nakamoto walked away, right? That's the true magic of Bitcoin. It came up from the grassroots and the people that built it, made it what it is today.
Okay. I mean, I agree with your points, and I definitely see, the benefits just as you explained. Um, but what would you say, when someone brings up an argument like it doesn't appear to have any intrinsic value? Is it a beauty in the eye of the beholder type of argument, or I mean, because I mean, in fairness, fiat currencies, government issued money, not backed by gold, they don't have intrinsic value either. But
There you go. Thank you for answering it for me.
I understand, but the U.S. dollar has been around for 234 years. The Japanese yen, 155 years. So what's your argument when someone brings that up, that there doesn't seem to be, or it doesn't have any intrinsic value?
Well, you already started it. I mean, the U.S. dollar was detached from the gold standard in 1970s under Nixon, because they didn't want the gold to be a standard. They wanted the dollar to be the standard globally, which was successful, right? So what's the dollar backed by? The full faith and credit of the United States. So put that in your bank and see what happens with it. I mean, it's basically, backed by promise. And sometimes the promise is not kept because there's been a lot of greed and corruption, not just with the dollar, but with many, or bad legislation or bad economic decisions that led to a number of, crashes. I mean, Bitcoin was born out of the Great Recession, and the mortgage crisis because, greed and corruption was all part of that whole process. So, that's when Bitcoin was released to create an alternate way to have currency that would have value independent of government intervention. Ironically, now everyone's intervening with it. It's now in stocks. It's now in ETFs. It's now in 401ks and 403bs. I mean, institutions have basically jumped on it. But going back to your value proposition, the most important part of the value that Bitcoin brings is the ability for the community to manage their own finance without interruption or interference from uh, governments or corporations that are only looking out for themselves, right? The true value is that it's in its purest form, you know, a currency that is independent of inflation, is independent of corruption. It's basically a value that the people bring to themselves by using Bitcoin.
You said something earlier about the key to your username, your password. Um,
The public key and the private key.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So now Bitcoin wallets.
Mhm.
You generally can't know who owns a Bitcoin wallet, and I've heard that a lot of black market or dark web activities is transacted with Bitcoin. Has that changed? Are you able to locate an individual owner of a wallet now, or can the transactions be tracked to an individual or corporation?
Absolutely. I mean, I've done it myself when it comes to cases that I've either was, considering or actually had where we wanted to find out where the Bitcoin was. Ironically, Bitcoin is more trackable than the US dollar. Yeah, I can track wallets all over the world. I mean, I've hired, cryptocurrency investigators to, track what Bitcoin or other cryptos went from one wallet to the other wallet, when it did it, when it happened, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very traceable, actually. Before, they just didn't know how to do it. Well, now they do, and they've been doing it for many many years. So yeah, so Bitcoin is not the no longer um, the crypto of choice when it comes to trying to hide transactions or do them surreptitiously. The dark coins and the cryptocurrency mixers are more they have more of those features that hide the actual transaction. But I mean, the only way you can possibly uh, and I said possibly because it's going to resurface at some point in time, is to have Bitcoin on a hard drive and give it to somebody, but they had to plug it in and put it in a wall somewhere, and then it's back on the radar screen, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you don't have that tracking ability with a dollar, but you have it with Bitcoin.
Yeah, never thought of it that way. Never thought of it that way. Shifting gears a moment, um, Dogecoin, openly created in 2013 as a joke.
Yep.
Okay, it became an iconic internet meme. Musk got behind it. Lots of people got slaughtered. How do you distinguish between legitimate digital assets and just pure speculation hype?
So excellent question. So meme coins are basically just like you said, it's just social media hype. It's a picture or pictures or images that's associated with the cryptocurrency. Is the dog for Dogecoin, and basically it has no business case. I mean, here's my theory. It was a joke, like you said. So it was put out there as a joke, which in response to Bitcoin. But people, it was so super, super, super cheap. People started buying it, and then and I have no actual evidence. This is what took place in conversation. But they probably said, "Holy crap! People are buying this coin. We gotta do something." So they built after the fact a business case for Dogecoin. But like you said, the true person that made it what it was, what it is today, and and how it went up and went down is Elon Musk. And he got behind it. It's soared in value. He goes on Saturday. This is in my book. He goes on Saturday Night Live on the
Hmm.
Weekend Update. The anchors are asking about Dogecoin, and then they say, "So it's a hustle?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's a hustle." Dogecoin tanks 30% that night. I mean, my text feed was blowing up. And I was actually watching this show to see if he was going to say anything about crypto, and he most certainly did, and it went down.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, there was a massive run up though before he got on the show.
exactly, exactly, and then it tanked down. It has never seen that height that it had before the show ever
Mm-mm.
again. So someone very close to me that wasn't involved in crypto, but heard me speak and heard my webinars and so on and so forth, and read a chapter two of my book. She was never really much of a tech reader, but she read it because of our relationship. And then one day she's like, "Huh, my Dogecoin and my Ethereum are going up." I was like, "You bought Dogecoin? Why did you do that?" This is what I'm listening to. I said, "If you listen to what I was saying, I was not saying buy Dogecoin, but it was so cheap she bought it." So I said, "Well, you're in now, so let's manage it." So her and her friend bought it because they kind of do a lot of things together. And Dogecoin ran up, and I said, sell it today, sell it now. And she sold it for a nice profit. Her friend didn't, and it tanked down again a few days later. Dogecoin and other meme coins, there's a number of other meme. There's SHIB, UNU, there's a whole bunch of meme coins. There
Hmm.
is no business case. There is no problem it's solving. It's not benefiting industry. The only people that benefit from a meme coin are in two categories: the meme coin creator and the person that happens to get it in the low and sell it at a high. And that's it. It's not a buy and hold proposition for me at all. So there's folks that I know that love meme coins because they get in and get out. There's like, modified day trading for them. But that's not the way I invest. That's not the way I analyze or determine which cryptocurrency is worth my time and, worth me investing in. Uh, I've never put money in a meme coin, and I probably never will.
And I guess that could be another positive argument for Bitcoin is the fact that only 21 million can be mined, whereas Doge, aside from being a joke, has an
Like a
infinite
trillion.
supply. Yeah, crazy,
Yeah.
crazy. Uh, let's move forward a little bit. Blockchain beyond crypto. Let's separate blockchain from cryptocurrency. Can blockchain succeed even if cryptocurrencies fail?
I mean, it's already doing that. Absolutely. So here's the way I describe it. Decentralized cryptocurrencies need blockchain technology for their base transactions, the programming, the protocols, the ledger. So a crypto like Bitcoin, Ethereum, they need a decentralized blockchain to exist. Okay. Then there's centralized cryptocurrencies like Ripple. I would
Mhm.
not call that a blockchain. It's like a private ledger that they use, but it is a cryptocurrency, right? There's a number of different ways you can flex and flow with the relationship between crypto and blockchain. But to get to your point you were making, blockchain technology does not need crypto to work or to exist. And there's plenty of fantastic examples of work globally that blockchain technology is doing to improve the lives of many people, improve government efficiencies, corporate efficiencies. The example I like to give is the Walmart IBM example. When Walmart was really interested in using blockchain technology, they researched how long it would take to find an affected mango that was grown overseas and that came to the US. And their research determined it would take 7 days to find that infected mango. Enter blockchain technology and IBM, and they put the IBM blockchain to work for Walmart, and then they put the growers, the sellers, the storage, the shippers, all of the stores, all on that um, IBM blockchain for Walmart. Guess how long it took them to find an affected mango at that with that blockchain technology? 2.2 seconds. So that's just one story of how blockchain technology works. It has immense value for supply chain, for example. It's got immense value for healthcare, identity management, digital identity. Uh, there's even some states. West Virginia did a blockchain voting system. A friend of mine in Utah in with her county, they've worked on it for a number of years. Uh, you can file a DAO LLC, decentralized autonomous organization LLC in Wyoming, Delaware, you can do corporate filings on a blockchain. Vermont has, the rules of evidence in Vermont allows for blockchain submissions to be submitted, in compliance with their rules of evidence. I can go all day and talk about how blockchain technology is being used in many countries. Estonia, uh, Jamaica, they have a central bank digital currency. Bahamas, Bermuda is on the leading edge of this kind of stuff. So, blockchain technology has great potential to impact almost every part of our lives. The issue is when I hear from most people, they say, Eric, I just don't understand it, right? So what I say to them is, what do you do? What's your job? Well, I'm an engineer, or I'm a lawyer, or I'm a pharmacist. Okay. Did you understand that stuff before you started doing it? Well, no. Well, how did you learn? Well, I had to study it. Well, so did I. It doesn't just kind of snap out of thin air and you use it, right? You have to research and understand it. And if it's worth that to you to do so, it's been definitely worth it for me. Learn about it, understand it, go to conferences, read books, blockchain and die, blockchain and die harder. Go on social media, learn. Get this. There's plenty of certification courses. There's actually associates, bachelor's, and master's degrees in this stuff now. It's integrated in every part of our society. But people are just intimidated because they feel that they don't understand it.
Yeah. Okay. That was a good story with Walmart and IBM. I'll definitely chalk one up to your side. You definitely swayed me. You definitely swayed me on blockchain. I can see, obviously the real world applications. Crypto, you and I will have to meet again, to discuss further.
Fair
But
enough.
all right, as a blockchain attorney, what are the biggest legal issues keeping your clients up at night? Is it the lack of knowledge that you said?
No, so by the time they're my client, they either know enough or they learned enough from me to get involved in this space. Okay. Because I educate them with real talk. So for example, not a client yet, they probably will become a client, but and this is a cautionary tale that I'm kind of looping in here for your listeners. He had this coin. I was on a call with him and his CTO, Chief Technology Officer, and he had this coin he wanted to invest in. He's like, Eric, I love this coin. I want to invest in it. I said, okay, well, what coin is it? So he sent me the link to the website, and I'm scoping it out. And I'm like, I just don't understand the business case here. I don't understand what they're solving. I understand what they're doing. It doesn't make sense to me. He goes, but he's like, I love it. I want to invest in it, And he said, well, just download the wallet. I was like, I'm not downloading this wallet. So the technology officer downloaded the wallet because I wasn't going to do it. And then, because do not download a wallet that you don't know or trust. That's another cautionary tale. So, few months, about a month or two later, we were on a follow-up call, and I mean, he's just distraught. He's downtrodden. And I'm like, what happened? He goes, I invested it in that coin and I should have listened to you. It's totally gone now. It was a total scam. And he said, I said, how much did you lose? He goes, I lost six figures. And he goes, that's not what hurts me the most. What hurts me the most is I told a lot of my people to invest in that coin and they did, and they lost their money too. So he goes, I should have listened to you. I was like, you should have,
Yeah.
right? So by the time a client comes to me, I've given them the tools that they need to create a successful crypto and or blockchain. I mean, I have both, fields of clients that do cryptos with blockchains and blockchains without crypto. Um, the biggest issue that I have to face with my clients is their crypto a security? Does it have to be filed with the SEC, right? And and years ago, I would get fought on that all the time. We don't have to file. We don't. I say, yeah, you do have to file. Well, a number of lawsuits, like including the Ripple SEC versus Ripple lawsuit, has kind of made it clear that, in many cases you do have to file. But then they have to build the coin such that it's conducive for a very solid SEC filing. And that takes time and it takes legal research and it takes putting together a solid, SEC, whether it's Reg A or Reg D or Reg CF or Reg A Lite, whichever one it is. You have to be able to tell your story or why your crypto is a valuable security. And, I was giving a speech in Atlanta some years ago, and there were some folks that were actually pushing back on me in this. And I said, okay, time out. Let me ask you this question. You've got company A and company B. Company A is selling you a cryptocurrency that's not registered with the SEC. Company B is selling you a cryptocurrency that is registered with the SEC. How many of you are going to choose company A over company B? Not one person raised their hand. How many would choose company B? Everybody else did. So that shows the importance of regulatory filing. It's not just important to be in compliance, but when you're talking to investors and you can say, oh, yeah, and I filed with the SEC, well, that gives them more comfort that your cryptocurrency and the work you're doing is in compliance with, U.S. government laws, right?
Mm.
So there's SEC, there's CFTC, Commodities and Futures Trading Commission. Sometimes you got to file with Treasury, and sometimes you have to, make sure that you have all your ducks in a row for the IRS, right? Because all those agencies are in play when it comes to cryptocurrencies.
IRS wants their money.
Absolutely, they always do. There's
But this,
actually now a from 2022 at the very top of the IRS 1040 form, all of them. Do you
mhm.
own cryptocurrencies? Yes or no? If you say no and you own the cryptocurrencies, you've just committed tax fraud.
Hmm.
And
Eh, They
they
can
will come
track
after.
you. They can tell if that's true or not, you said, right?
Oh yeah, they can. I mean, some years ago, I mean, they actually subpoenaed Coinbase for all their records, and Coinbase eventually gave their records up. A lot of folks in the community were scared because they hadn't filed their crypto, on any of their tax returns. Fortuitously, I did. I saw it as an investment. I saw it as revenue, as realized gains. So
Hmm.
I filed it, but a lot of folks got letters from the IRS based on that Coinbase submission, and they had to pay, and that was around 2000 and I think 18, because in December the market tanked. A lot of people had to sell their crypto to pay the IRS penalties and fines and the back taxes on the money they made in crypto. You
Yeah,
know,
that's why
and
that's what you
yeah,
see a lot of big corporations obviously listing it on their balance sheets as well. Obviously,
absolutely. Yeah,
micro strategy, Tesla, the list goes on and on. But again, we're talking about the regulation of this open source software. Um, do you think that it's the digital asset regulation is going to get tougher as the years go on?
I think it depends on the administration. Right now, I think it's gotten easier, quite frankly. A Biden administration was tougher on it than the current administration is. One and two, there are laws that are actually being passed. I mean, there's been over 50 pieces of legislation that either was crypto or had crypto involved in it. None of them passed. But the Genius Act, which was specifically just for stablecoins, which is a very, very small slice of the crypto world, passed. And now the Clarity Act, I mean, if that passes, there's some folks that are against the Clarity Act and in both houses. But if that passes, that will be the most impactful piece of legislation for the crypto world. And I predict that if it does pass, you're going to see cryptos increase a fair amount, directly because of that act.
Gotcha. What about that wallet that the news reports is tied directly to the White House that has an impeccable trading record?
No comment.
Just asking. Just asking.
I
Uh,
gave you the answer.
in the beginning, in the intro, we touched on NFTs, Web3,
Yeah,
future technology. For the listeners that don't know, NFTs, non fungible tokens,
correct.
is, for lack of a better way of describing, is that someone buying a JPEG, a picture of an original artwork?
So originally NFTs were like that. I mean, like basically it was either artwork or a photograph that was put on a associated with a token on a blockchain. Ironically, you don't own the artwork, you just own the token. And it kind of evolved. Then you could put music on NFTs, right? And then what happened was, this is where it really exploded. They realized that NFTs could be a means to store information securely on a blockchain without having the risk of it being changed. So now there's a lot of information that's being stored on NFTs. For example, real estate titles. For example, degrees. For example, certificates. You know, so how does that work? Well, uh, I think MIT is one of the ones that initially did the degree part. They have a blockchain, right? They have their blockchain that they use, and they store the certificate or the degree on the NFT on their blockchain. If somebody wants to verify the fact that you graduated from MIT or whatever college, all you have to do, you don't longer have to have them send an email or send a letter or fax. You can just give them the address to that blockchain to your NFT with your degree, and they can find it instantaneously.
Gotcha. So
Right.
it's more of a practical application than an investment.
There,
So we're
there,
not
there are both. There are practical application for NFTs, which I support, and
okay.
then there's NFTs that are being sold, which are basically another version of a meme coin for my purposes. But I mean, again, there's albums that have been sold using NFTs. There's my book has a bunch of artists that put albums on NFTs, and they were able to put in additional artwork, concert tickets, interviews, all that stuff that, could be added extras for the NFT. And the more extras they put into it, the more value the NFT has. I mean, the Bored Ape Yacht Club is an example of NFTs that have just gone wild. And, you're not buying the artwork. I mean, yes, you get the Bored Ape, but it gives you access to a community. And the community is very influential. The community is very connected on the Discord servers. So it gives you access, And at one point in time, one Bored Ape was like $150,000, right?
Didn't Justin Bieber buy
A bunch
one?
of there's a whole list of celebrities that bought Bored Apes.
Yeah, I
Whole list
think
of
he bought
celebrities.
$1.3 million or something.
I would not the rarer the Bored Ape, that 150 was an average, right?
Hmm.
The more rarer the Bored Ape with the characteristics, the seven characteristics, and some of them only have just one. There's only one with that characteristic. That's an extremely rare Bored Ape, and that's what they buy. But on average, $150,000. Now, Bored Ape Yacht Club soared in value when the market was like doing extremely well back in 2020.
Hmm.
Since then, it's tanked. Now, here's where we're talking about Tale of Two Cities. So, after the tanking of the whole crypto market, in 2020, 2021, eventually the crypto market rebounded, right? Bitcoin got to $115,000. The NFT market as a whole never rebounded the way cryptos did. Bored Ape Yacht Club has never gotten to the point it was at that peak years ago. And that's just not for them. For many cryptos, a number of them went out of business. Crypto kitties and crypto punks, which were huge back in the day.
Hmm.
Um, not
I think
only did
Gary V got taken for one of the crypto punks. Gary Vaynerchuk.
okay,
Yeah, he was known for his promotion of the digital assets, and I think he lost over 6 million on a single crypto punk.
wouldn't be surprised because they tanked in price and it never came back, and now it was sold for like pennies on the dollar just to have it being a piece of digital history. It was sold to a nonprofit. So if you owned a crypto punk or if you owned a crypto kitty, as back in the day and you paid, like a lot of money for it, I am so sorry. Do not invest in meme coins and NFTs like that, especially for long term, because they're highly, highly, high, more speculative to me than cryptocurrencies because they don't have a business model. The business model is, hey, this is a picture. You're gonna pay people, gonna pay for the picture, but not as much anymore.
Okay, so you moved me a little bit on NFTs because I did not think about the practical applications like your example with MIT. And I do like that the music catalog example. I'm going to research that further as well. Um, Web3,
Okay,
it's become a buzzword.
it
I
has.
hear I hear it all the time. How do you define it in plain English?
So I will tell you the iterations of the internet. Internet 1.0 Web 1 was the internet of information. And for those of
Hmm.
you that were around back in the day when websites first came out, it was just like an encyclopedia, just globs of information on the page. You scroll paragraph, paragraph, paragraph. This is before video, before social media, before, web pages became more manageable and suctionalized. That was Web 1. Web 2 is a web or internet of communication. So that's when you were able to go in the chat rooms and talk to people. And along came social media, Facebook. Well, first MySpace, then Facebook.
Hmm.
And then you could talk to thousands, millions of people at the same time, which you could never do before, right? You could have a post and people could see your post and they can go global and or you can post a video on YouTube, it can go global and you can have millions of views, right? Before that, that didn't exist on the internet. So internet one, information, internet two, communication, Internet 3, Web 3, is the internet of value. So what does that mean? You go on Amazon or Etsy or any of the other, internet sites, and eBay, what have you, and you want to buy something, right? In order to buy something, you have to attach value from an external source. You got to go to a bank or a credit card company or PayPal or whatever, or a gift card in order for you to make that purchase, right? Using blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies, the wallet is inherent inside the blockchain. So when you go to purchase something, you don't have to go to external source. The value is right there. It's inherent with that crypto, right? So Web 3.0 is the internet of value. And that value is what really kind of blew things up because, when you're doing a lot of regulatory analysis, the transfer of value uh, triggers certain things, which is why the SEC is involved, which is why Treasury is involved. They weren't involved in Web 1 and Web 2. Maybe the FCC was, right? But,
Hmm.
not SEC and CFTC and Treasury because there was no value being transacted, right? So Web 3.0 is the internet of value. And, that has a broader application because now the metaverse, you can transfer value on the metaverse. You could transfer value with AI, right? But all of that started because of blockchain technology.
Interesting. I love it. I mean, you've been around the world training professionals. What separates organizations that successfully adopt new technology from those that struggle?
So that's an excellent question. And I'd say that the first part of the answer is why are they doing it? I've had people come to me, potential clients come to me and say, "We want to use blockchain technology for our business." Okay, well, what's it going to do? Well, this and that, this and that. And I'd say, well, you don't really need blockchain technology for that. If you're just doing it to say the buzzword of blockchain technology, you're doing it for all the wrong reasons. I mean, you could pay me my fees, we can go through the process, but you're not going to come out with anything but an expensive, digital assets. It's not going to do you any good for your business. So that's the first thing. Why are you doing it? The second thing is, um, are you doing it for something that's going to solve a business problem? Is it going to be an actual solution, right? So that part is where I kind of coach them through it. I'm onboarding a new client right now, and uh, they had a crypto years and years ago. That's when we met at a conference when I came down from the speaking. I was asked a lot of questions and ended up with one client, and then this person who we kind of talked for a while. Her crypto did not do anything. She hired the wrong people and she had the wrong business model. So she put it aside. She texted me about a month or so ago and says, "Hey, I want to get back in doing this crypto." I said, "Well, has your business model changed at all?" And she was like, "No, it hasn't." I said, "So if I recall, your business model was just to put the crypto on a blockchain on an exchange and sell it as a crypto." She goes, "That's correct." I said, "That doesn't work anymore. That is no longer what people are looking for in investment. You have to create a business model with independent revenue. You have to show a business case." And she was like, "Well, how do I do that?" I said, "Well, other than hiring me, we had to figure out how that works." So we're in so I've designed some really, really cool models for her and she loves it. So we're going to be hopefully creating a very, very impactful cryptocurrency, especially for youth, within the next year or so. Which turns me to my third point. And my third point is a lot of folks will come and say they have this great idea, and it can be a very good idea. But they don't have the money to see it through. And so what does that mean? Oh, how do I know they don't have the money? An average SEC filing is about $50,000. Could be more, could be less, depending on the situation, but that's the average, right? And that's just SEC, not CFTC, not Treasury. So they say, well, we can afford that. If you can afford a $50,000 legal bill, then you should not be creating a cryptocurrency business because there's going to be a whole lot more involved in that. You're going to have to have a compliance program. You're going to have a robust marketing program, and all of that is more expensive than my little bill. And if you went to a major law firm, it would be way more expensive than that $50,000, right?
That's right.
So, the number three thing I'd say is that, people don't understand that the amount of revenue it takes to actually successfully do this is way more than they think it is. And I've seen a lot of companies run out of money, and the coin never happened, right? So have adequate resources. I've sent clients back and I said, come back to me when you have $250,000. I've got a few of those right now that are kind of like, they're in fundraising mode because I didn't want to take their money now and they end up with nothing, So I try to be, ethical and fair about it, but also try and be very truthful. And the truth is that, it takes money.
Yep. Yep. I learned a lot today, Eric. I got to tell you, I did.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
you and I, before we hit record, we established that we're both getting older. What skills? We have a lot of young attorneys that tune in. What skills should younger attorneys develop if they want to remain relevant in this type of technology? The technology driven future. Because I mean, it is obvious blockchain is here to stay.
Right. So there's actually a whole chapter in my book, Blockchain and the Harder, a whole chapter on that. And I wanted to make sure in this book. So Blockchain and Die, the first book, 2019, things were a little more theoretical, right? Now companies are being built, billions are being made. Important industries are adopting blockchain technology, and it's still at the tail end of the, early adopter phase, right? So, the first thing you should do, other than reading one or both of my books, is get involved, right? Get involved. Learn about the technology. I teach CLE courses. I'm actually going to be in New York teaching one tomorrow at New York Law School,
Okay.
and how to build a practice with crypto and blockchain. And my message is you have to learn it, you have to understand it, preferably learn how to use it yourself, and then you have to become a thought leader because you can know all this stuff, you can use all this stuff, but if no one knows that you can do it, then no one's going to hire you as an attorney. So you got to get your name out there, right? And the way I did it was by writing books. The way I did it is by doing trainings, speaking at conferences. All those ways have built my and then references came into play. Like, people refer. I have CPAs that do crypto work. I've got coders, and we always exchange clients, right? And then we build that network that way. So I would tell young attorneys, first of all, if you want to do it, don't be daunted. You finished law school, you passed the bar, you can most certainly learn this, right? And just learn at your pace, learn how you want to learn, whether you're reading, whether you're listening to videos or podcasts like this one, whether you're going to conferences and listening to talking heads. I've done all of them, and that has proven to be effective for me. And then just getting out there and writing articles. I write articles on LinkedIn, and so you're welcome to go read some of the articles. Um, Speaking globally, because a lot of countries have different, they're in different places in the blockchain journey. Very few are as advanced as the US. There's some countries that are even more advanced than the US. Like Dubai has a blockchain app, Dubai Now, for which is in the book, for government services.
Hmm.
Estonia has an e-citizenship that's run by blockchain technology. So, a lot of governments have had very successful uses of blockchain technology. And thinking globally also is a better way to view it than just thinking US, because there's a global market out there. I have clients in the UK, I have clients in different countries. So, it's local, it's global. And if you have that mindset, when you get ready to actually get involved in practice, that global mindset will serve you well.
Yeah, interesting. And I know, Eric, listen, we can talk for days about this topic. For our listeners that I'm sure will want to learn more, curious or not, believers or skeptics, where can listeners find your book? What's the best way to contact you? Is there a website, phone number?
Yes, thanks, Sal. So, the best way to buy the book is on Amazon. Both books are on Amazon. There's three versions. There's a e-version, which of course you can get immediately. There's a soft cover, and there's an audio version. So those are three ways that you can buy both books, Blockchain or Die or Blockchain or Die Harder. You can find me on ericguthrie.com, ericguthrie.com. You can email me at eric@blockchainordie.org. On my LinkedIn, it's Eric Lance Guthrie. And there's also the Blockchain or Die website, blockchainordie.org, which I'll be updating for book signings. So it may be in your area to do a book signing. I'm doing one in New York Law School tomorrow. I'll be in California in August. I'll be in Atlanta at the UNCF conference in July. Um, I have trips planned to Boston and Miami again in August. The U.S. Virgin Islands in September. Uh, and also have some international trips that I'm finalizing now to Bangkok, to Kenya, and to the UK. So I may be in your backyard. If I am, come see me, or find me virtually. Either one works, or both. Both work for me. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Saul. Great conversation.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening, so maybe we'll do this again, sometime in the near future, and catch up.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun listening to you. It's obvious to me why you're one of the leading voices helping businesses and professionals navigate this rapidly evolving world of blockchain and digital assets. And I have to say, I did come in, you know, not as a believer, more as a skeptic. And even if someone's in between, I think that the key takeaway from today is you have to recognize that the challenge isn't deciding whether change is coming. It's already here. It's deciding how informed you'll be at the end of the day. And Eric, like I said, we could spend days on this topic, but I really want to thank you for opening up your brain, sharing your thoughts, and obviously joining us here as well.
My pleasure and my honor. Thank you, Sal. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Top Attorneys podcast. The Top Attorneys celebrates the achievements of leading attorneys across the nation. To be featured, send a message or visit www.topattorneys.us.